What's up again, guys? Brian here at 3TR, and I got another solid episode of the People's Questions, episode 98. I first off like to thank all of you guys out there for your really great set of questions, and to jump right into it. The first two questions come from Criticism Guide 2009, and you first wanted to know, if I had a choice to buy the car of my dreams, what would it be? Unquestionably, I mean, you might think this is a little bit strange and nerdy of me, but I would actually want to get the DeLorean from Back to the Future simply because of the nostalgic value, and because I'd like to customize it and add a couple of, trickies of myself, probably to the interior, to maybe add some neon lights, or just give it a 3TR touch. And I don't know, I personally think the DeLorean is like one of the coolest vehicles ever in cinema history. Next question is, what are my expectations for the PlayStation Vita? Actually, to be honest, I believe at this point in time, I think the PlayStation Vita has actually already exceeded my expectations. All I've really wanted for it is for it to have some solid IPs and for it to be highly compatible with the PlayStation 4, which apparently that's, at last year's E3, that's kind of what they acknowledged that the system would be able to do. And so, I don't have one myself. I'm still waiting for like a small little price drop. I recently heard that they did add a bundle for the UK that actually comes with the PlayStation Vita, so that kind of makes me wonder if I should have waited till that bundle was available here in the States. But yeah, as far as I know, it's already exceeded my expectations. I just need to wait for a price drop, and then I'll be sure to buy one, and I'll be playing the hell out of it. The next two questions come from Draven G, and he wanted to know, do I see Superman getting his own standalone game in the future? Superman has had a history of video games. I think the problem that most game developers would have with a Superman game is adding limitations. The reason why Batman works it has such a really well done formula in terms of games is because he's so limited to what he can do, as opposed to Superman, who really has no limits. And so you can't even make a standard basic game around that. I mean, it would be probably something like a sandbox game, but like, where are the boundaries? I mean, it makes no sense to put boundaries around someone who should be able to break these boundaries. So adding like invisible walls. So I just think it's the fact that Superman is so powerful that if you were to limit his abilities, then it wouldn't really feel like a Superman game. So I really just don't think a Superman game for this age would be really possible to do well. I'd like to see a developer try, but if they were to make a Superman game, I don't think it would be nearly as good as the Arkham games. Next question is, what are my overall thoughts on John Cena, the character? I personally have no problem with John Cena. I think in my last episode, I actually did a list of like my top 3 favorite WWE superstars, and he actually would, if I went like a little bit further, he would actually be like number 5. I think my only real problem with them is that I don't think WWE knows how to push him aside. And from his standpoint, I really don't see why he hasn't wanted to take a legitimate break. I mean, I'm sure he has strongly acknowledged that Daniel Bryan is quickly becoming the guy. But, you know, despite them being real friends in real life, he can't really be pushed to be the main babyface as long as he's there. So if I were and what hasn't Cena done? He has more world championships than almost anyone. He's only 2 behind Ric Flair, which I'm sure he'll be able to breach that in the next year or 2. I'm positive that's going to happen. But I don't know. If I were him, despite my love for the business, I would want to take maybe a year or 2 off, allowing them to build up other people. And then when he comes back, he now has a whole new set of challenges for him to head towards. But as far as the character himself, he's perfectly fine. I personally have nothing against him. I just think that he really needs to take just a legitimate break. I think he's deserved it. He's stated many times that he needed a break. Not just because of injuries, maybe just take some time off and do other things. I wouldn't mind. Next question comes from the man Mike 1127, and you want to know which game is better, Mortal Kombat or Injustice? Well, I'm going to assume you're talking about the 2 newest editions. I would have to say overall, maybe Mortal Kombat's a little bit better, simply because it has fatalities. I think the characters are much more balanced out. And I just think that Mortal Kombat really is the basis to which Injustice is built upon. Injustice, to its core, is really, the combat system is really built on top of from what Mortal Kombat did. The only difference is that it has environmental damage attacks. It has those super like finishing power attacks, which Mortal Kombat did incorporate. But I think that its characters are less balanced. You can't really be as good with every character as you can with Mortal Kombat. Like, I'm really good with someone like Superman and Batman, but I can't be as good with those characters as I am with someone like, say, Lex Luthor or Doomsday. So I just think that Mortal Kombat is much more balanced with its combo and characters than I think Injustice did. But they're both really great games. The next question comes from Lion095, King of the Thundercats, and you want to know, when do I think the PlayStation 4 will get a price drop? Well, at this point in time, I really don't think the PlayStation 4 even needs a price drop. I think that $400 is a solid price for this really interesting system. I just don't think that at this point in time it has enough gaming content to really put the $400 to good use, because I haven't turned my PlayStation 4 on in days now. Like, I've been spending even more time with my PlayStation 3s than my PlayStation 4 simply because I don't have any other games to play on it. But if a price drop were to happen, I would say maybe halfway through its lifespan we'll probably see it. But if anyone needs a price drop, I think the Xbox One needs it more than any system right now. And your next question is a versus question, and you want to know, who do I think would win in a fight between Crash Bandicoot and Fox McCloud? Well, I could make an entire video talking about this, but if I could simplify it, I think Fox McCloud would win hands down. Simply because, to me, Crash Bandicoot is not an actual fighter. He's more of an adventurer who is able to adapt to a multitude of situations, as opposed to Fox McCloud, who is an actual trained soldier. He is a professional warrior who has had vast amounts of combat experience in even more varieties of combat, whether it's in space, which would give him a very high intellect in terms of battlefield strategy. He's had experience fighting against entire armies. He's fought galactic entities and beings, and he's even taken on such things as dinosaurs. So Fox McCloud simply has a much higher variety of combat scenario experiences than Crash does, which would mean that Crash really isn't bringing anything that Fox McCloud wouldn't be able to at least counter or even use to his advantage. So I think that's why Fox would win. Next two questions come from Galen429, and you wanted to know, who do I think would win in a fight between Doomsday and Apocalypse? This was actually a pretty difficult one for me to come up with, but if I could simplify it, I'm pretty sure Doomsday would be able to take care of it. Apocalypse pretty well. It would be a pretty difficult fight, but Doomsday would be able to power through Apocalypse simply because I don't think Apocalypse could go head-to-head with Doomsday in terms of sheer physical power, and I don't think Apocalypse could really generate enough really just overall energy power to be able to take down Doomsday. Doomsday can take a shit ton of punishment. I mean, let's be honest. In a straight-up physical fight, he was able to go toe-to-toe to Superman, and it basically took Superman and Doomsday practically killing each other by hitting each other with everything they have. I don't think Apocalypse is that powerful. And in terms of sheer power, he just couldn't generate enough. I mean, if we're really talking about a good instance where it took sheer raw power to take down Doomsday, then you could talk about his first interaction with the Green Lantern Corps. The Green Lantern Corps, in order for the Green Lantern Corps to take down Doomsday, they had to bring in every single Green Lantern they had and just blast his ass with every last ounce of energy that they had. And to simplify it in terms of power, Apocalypse is no Galacticus. He is no Imperiex. Imperiex Prime was able to blow Doomsday away to the point where all that was left was his skeleton. So I just don't think that in terms of sheer physical power and sheer magnitude, he would be able to generate enough to take down Doomsday. It would still be a pretty good fight, but I'm pretty sure Doomsday would be able to power through and take Apocalypse down. Your next question is, any early thoughts on the newly hinted Apocalypse movie? I'm pumped up for it. From what I've heard, they're going to use the newer cast of the first class cast in order to have him interact with Apocalypse. I'm just curious as to how they plan to incorporate him into this world. I don't know enough about that yet, but hopefully they do the character justice, and I can't wait to see him in the X-Men movie for 2016. And these next two questions come from Nick Smith, and Nick Smith, you kind of brought up a little bit of a scenario that I had with last week's episode, and I have to explain this. Your two questions were, you want me to put the Avengers against the Justice League, and then the Justice League versus the X-Men. The problem with this is this. It's kind of impossible to really choose who is going to win because I don't know who is on these teams. The X-Men, the Justice League, and the Avengers are so massive with their members. They have up to 20, 30, or 40, maybe 50 members per team. It's impossible for me to really decide who is going to win. Because if you're really going to compare them between Marvel and DC characters, if you've read the comic books, well, in one scenario, DC was able to beat Marvel, and then in the other scenario, Marvel was able to beat DC. So it's virtually impossible to really come up with who is going to win in an all-out team fight. If you guys are gonna send in a versus question involving teams, you have to either give me a team which is established, or if you're gonna use these massive teams like the Justice League, Avengers, or X-Men, you have to tell me who is fighting for the X-Men, who is fighting for the Justice League. So if you want to use the Avengers and the Justice League, then how many members are fighting for Avengers, how many are fighting for the Justice League, and who is on this team? If you can tell me that, then I can come up with an answer. But at this point in time, it's anyone's game. Anyone could win this fight between the Avengers, Justice League, and X-Men. There is such a massive diversity between these teams, it's really impossible to decide who would come out the winner, because I believe there's still an ongoing series between the Avengers and the X-Men, and the last time I checked, I think the X-Men were kind of taking ahead of the Avengers, and then a Spider-Man came in and then kind of balanced out the whole thing, so I can't really come up with an answer. So with that, those are all the questions that you guys sent in this week for the People's Questions. I'd like to thank all of you guys out there that sent in your really great set of questions. If you have any more questions that you would like me to answer for episode 99, please type them in the comments down below and be sure to get them into me before next Wednesday before I start filming these. And if you like this video, feel free to like, comment down below, and please subscribe. Check to read my future episodes of the People's Questions, movie and video game reviews. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next time.